How one phrase can ruin your whole leadership work. It seems quite special when someone claims that with just one phrase you can ruin all the work you've done over years and years. But as a matter of fact, it is actually possible easier than you think. Normally, especially male and quite strong leaders who want to appear the strong leader in the organization often say, well, you make a very clear statement. You just give a very clear position where you are. You do not make any compromises when it comes to giving a statement about certain values. And of course, in the first place, that is a good attitude. People prefer decisions made over decisions not made. Maybe you heard of leaders, when you ask something, where shall we go in this project? Is it way A or way B? Should we go that way or the other way? They say, well, both ways are a viable option. I think it's up to you to decide. I don't really know, but I'm sure you are the right person to make this decision, which normally ends with the following situation. When it works well, the leader makes a big celebration about how great they are, and when things go wrong, they will blame you for making the wrong decision. That, of course, has nothing to do with leadership. But at the moment, and especially this week, we have a very special situation which just happened recently. In Germany, there's now the challenge running, who is going to be the new leader of the Conservative Party? And there's a disclaimer up front here. I want to be just dead honest with you here. When you, I'm a self-employed entrepreneur, so I'm not politically neutral. I will criticize the Conservative candidate quite significantly in the next minutes during this podcast. Just to let you know, I'm not one of these leftists who just want to talk down on someone. As a self-employed entrepreneur, you find me in the UK between the Liberal and Conservative spectrum. I supported David Cameron, who, except the referendum, in my opinion, still did a reasonable job. I am in favour of less regulation and low taxation up to a reasonable amount. So you find me in the UK in the Conservative spectrum. In Germany, I am more, especially with the same attitude towards regulation and taxation, more with the Liberals, which is nothing else. They are the coalition partner of the Conservative Party when they get the appropriate amount of percentages and seats in the parliament. So this is not a podcast where I'm just ranting about a Conservative candidate. Still, I have to bring in severe criticism due to a very specific reason. And this reason can happen in your organization every single time. Just one interview with one phrase, and you are in the same position as this person is. One candidate, and his name is Friedrich Merz, just said in an interview when it came to the topic of LGBT community and what he thinks about same-sex marriage, homosexuality, he said that homosexuality, in his opinion, is nothing that should be discussed in public. He's fine with it as long as no children are involved. Yes, just maybe you now looked on the calendar. Yes, it is the year 2020. I'm recording this right now, and I'm just 3 walking minutes away from Covent Garden while recording this. We are in the year 2020, and a Conservative candidate who wants to run for Chancellor. In Germany, the most powerful person is the Chancellor, not the Prime Minister as in the UK. So for our international listeners, in Germany, the Chancellor, Angela Merkel, at the moment is the most powerful person. In the United Kingdom, it is the Prime Minister. In the United States, it is the President. So just that you know which positions we are talking about. So Friedrich Merz now connected in this interview homosexuality with sexual abuse of children, a stereotype which comes somewhere from the 1950s in Germany, or even earlier, from very dark times in the history of the Federal Republic or Germany, or in the 1930s, the Deutsche Reich. And when you now say, oh, come on, just don't make a big fuss about that, I'm sure he meant the best. It was just a slip of a tongue. I just give you a couple of examples, and now you think of your job when I say that. Just a couple of statements I could say. Well, I don't have any problem with bankers as long as they are not these fraudsters who rip off everyone, take all these horrible fees, and then they just do money laundry and tax evasion like they just did, as we know, in the FinCEN leaks. I have no problem with bankers, but not with the fraudster ones, Immediately, you would say, for a very good reason, not all people who work in banking do fraud. How can you just blandly and blindly connect every single person working in the financial industry with this kind of behavior? And rightly so. Just 2 more examples. I could say, well, I don't have a problem with lawyers as long as they don't do these cheap kind of tricks, or they rape interns after the Oktoberfest, haha. Because we had a case in Germany where from a very well-known law firm, a partner from a very well-known law firm raped an intern. 3.5 years in jail was the result. And of course, we have lawyers who use tricks you should not use. Still, this is not what all lawyers do. I'm just generalizing. And of course, the statement would be completely unacceptable. The same would apply for the following example. Well, I don't have a problem with salespeople, but not like the really cheesy ones who sell absolutely everything. They don't believe in the product. They only want to have my money. I have no problem with sales, but just not with these tricky, cheesy people who just want my money. Immediately, every person in sales would say, where do you have that picture from? Most people in sales do very honest work. They want to do consultative work. They want to get the best solution for their client. Yes, they make money with it, but that's what every organization does. So we see here, as soon as it gets closer to your job, people will then say, maybe you should think about more what kind of statements you put out there. And the same applies to every person in leadership of your organization when they are not professionally prepared. Oh, by the way, when Friedrich Merz, the conservative candidate here, was asked, what does he think about the situation and that statement? He just says, it's all just a really bad assumption against him, very constructed. He never meant that, so he never apologized, which of course made it worse. And what happened then was a so-called, that's what they say in Germany, shitstorm, which means a ton of negative comments on social media. And it's not the first time that this candidate happened to do something like that. About the gay mayor of Berlin, Klaus Wowereit, he's the former mayor of Berlin. He says, I have no problem with homosexuality or with the homosexuality of Mr. Wowereit as long as he doesn't get close to me. Oh yeah, of course, because we're all waiting for you, right? So that again shows a very distinct picture of how he thinks homosexuality in society should be perceived. And by the way, the same conservative candidate was asked, one thing you should know as some sort of background information, he makes about €1 million per year working as a lawyer. He worked for the BlackRock investment firm. He owns 2 planes, which is not really a relevant fact, but especially in Germany, where the factor of envy is very high, people don't appreciate when you're rich. That doesn't make any sense, but still, when it comes to politics, people vote for a person. And as we all know, no one's going to vote for someone they do not like. So what happens then, in a talk show, they asked him, where in society do you see yourself? Because they were telling him, aren't you just one of these rich people who want to go to politics to have a personal advantage? And he says, no, he's not one of them. And then they ask, so where in society are you? And he said, upper middle class. Upper middle class. Well, we all know upper middle class, making $1 million a year, having 2 planes. That's where we all are, isn't it? Aren't we? No, of course we're not. The consequence of that was that in the last leadership challenge, he lost by, I think it was 12 votes against Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer for conservative leadership. And these kind of remarks tend to happen more and more often, not only in organizations, but also in politics. So Rainer Brüderle, the former leader of the Liberal Party, who then even dropped out of parliament due to his statement, made a joke about, it's a very German joke, that someone has, he said, and I'm not making this up, but I apologize in advance, not my words, a conservative leader during a press meeting talked to a younger journalist and says, well, the word-by-word translation is, you have a lot of wood in front of your hut, which is a sexual alluding remark about the size of her breasts. Completely unacceptable. It went to press. The whole image of the party went down. They dropped out of parliament. And here you see, when you have leaders in place, you need one phrase today, one phrase that is picked up and goes to public, and your whole organization gets a massive harm from it. So how can you do better? Because we now have an unambiguous proof. You need one wrong statement and everything goes upside down. So step number 1 to make it better. Because in every podcast, I promise, I tell how to do it better. I offer advice. I'm not forcing anyone to do it that way, but I think it is reasonable advice. So step number 1, when you are wrong, you of course apologize. So what Friedrich Merz, the conservative candidate, should have done, he should have said, I was horribly wrong. I gave the wrong impression. And this is why I apologize completely to absolutely anyone who thought I did something wrong. He didn't say that. He said, people are constructing things against me just to keep me out of the race for leadership. And that, of course, made it far worse. So step number 1, when you're wrong, apologize. Step number 2, you must be professionally prepared for your leadership role, for presentations, and for every public statement. And especially people from the legal industry. And I don't want to talk down on you, because when you want to be a very good lawyer, you must be incredibly smart. You must be incredibly sharp when it comes to rhetorics. And you must be incredibly sharp when it comes to making a written statement. And especially due to this, no one will forgive you when you make a wrong statement, because you are professionally qualified, that you know what you say. There is no second chance, especially not for you. So you must be professionally trained. And when, of course, you just stick to someone you know, so someone knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who has a brother, and their cousin also does something with sort of rhetorics or whatever. If you work like that, if you don't go by professional standards, but you only want to be in your own network and basically serve your own friends, you get amateur advice, as we saw here. The same candidate for the second time is not going to win the race for conservative leadership just due to one line. And it doesn't seem that he learned anything from it, because what you really need now, and that is step number 3, is you need professionally prepared sound bites. Sound bites mean professionally prepared statements about certain topics. And I give you a couple of examples, which topics in which industries, for example, that could be. So let's say you sell motors, you sell engines for ships, and you sell them all around the world. People could now say, well, we just looked on your website and you are very openly supporting democracy and diversity. So how can you justify that you trade with nations, for example, Saudi Arabia or Russia, where people who are openly not heterosexual are persecuted? Then you better have a bloody good statement. And in most cases, you only hear some blah, blah, blah. So people talk a lot but don't say anything. And then the harm is already there. Because people, especially young and highly qualified people, don't want to work in non-diverse environments. City of London is basically down the road from where I am now. And the company Monzo, with more than 20% LGBT, is just down the road from here. And they attract people because they stick to their values. And when people find out that due to your statements, all the values on your website are nothing else than all talk, no trousers, they will turn away from you. You will need to spend 10 times more than your competitor on recruiting to balance out the damage these leaders do to you. So step number 1, apologize when you're wrong. Step number 2, get professional preparation. I'm happy to help you with that. I'm doing that for more than 20 years. Just drop me an email if you need any kind of help. It's way less work than you think. Step number 3, you need professionally prepared sound bites. And step number 4 is, please always look at the mission, vision, and value you give, and if it is congruent with the behavior of your leaders. You cannot say that you're open-minded, you want to change the world, you're here to make the world a better place, and then you make unacceptable statements left, right, and center. And there are always 2 ways how you can deal with it. The bad way is you change your mission, vision, and value statement to align it to your leaders. That is what unfortunately sometimes happens. And of course, you will lose many people on the way, because people will say, oh, so someone acts in the wrong way and then they get it their way. Thank you very much. I'm going to work somewhere else. And be sure the worst people in your organization, they always stay, because secretly they know that they are really bad, but they will stay until the very last day, and then you have to pay them a lot of money to get rid of them. So what you should do is, with step number 4, when you look at your mission, vision, and value statements, you have to replace. So first, either you have to coach and change, or you have to replace leaders who are unable or unwilling to live by the values they promote. When you have the same bland group of people talking about values, and as soon as the camera turns off, everything they say has nothing to do with the values you promote, you will never have a great brand, you will never win on the market, and you will never get the best people on board. So these are the 4 steps. Step 1, apologize when you're wrong. Step 2, get professional preparation, buy a professional. Don't only do your own network, you need external help. Step number 3, have professional sound bites, short sound moments when it comes to critical topics. And step number 4, check your mission, vision, and value. What is the leading picture you give as an organization? And then check, how can you professionally prepare your leaders to do so? Because we now have, once more, the living proof that you only need one line, one wrong line in the wrong moment to harm your whole club, your whole organization, your whole party, your whole corporation for a very long time. I wish you all the best when implementing this in your organization. And for this week, I can only say thank you very much. for your time.